Welcome to this explainer. Let's just skip the corporate fluff today, right? We are diving straight into the high-stakes, bottom-line metrics of HR communication. Whether you are fortifying your organization's strategy or trying to master these core concepts for your HRCI certification, consider this your absolute source of truth. Because look, an HR function can design the most amazing benefits package in the world, but without a formalized communication strategy, those programs are just going to flat out fail. So, let's kick things off with a number that should honestly make any executive sit up and take notice: 47%. According to Towers Watson data, organizations that actually nail their communication strategies generate a massive 47% higher total return to shareholders compared to their lagging peers. I mean, that proves communication isn't just some soft employment brand metric. It literally anchors your workforce to the mission and drives undeniable financial ROI. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with bottom-line impact, move into structuring your strategy, tackle crisis segmentation, explore cross-cultural models, and then wrap up with channels and fiduciary protection. Basically, we're moving from the foundational metrics all the way to applied high-risk compliance. Let's jump into Section 1, bottom-line impact and ROI. Keeping that 47% in mind, we really have to shift how we view corporate messaging. There's a stark, undeniable contrast between effective and ineffective communication dynamics. Think of effective communication as a vital shield. It elevates morale, clarifies exactly what's expected, and crucially, it mitigates legal grievances. On the flip side, ineffective communication isn't just, an overlooked email. It actively damages relationships, erodes trust, and fosters a hostile environment that will absolutely restrict your organization's success. Moving right along to Section 2, structuring communication strategy. A proactive model stops chaos in its tracks by defining how information flows way before a major corporate development even happens. And to do that, we have to define our stakeholder roles. Think of it chronologically. First, senior leadership sets the cultural tone and the fundamental strategy. Then, that strategy passes down to line managers, who actually handle the daily operational back and forth with direct reports. Meanwhile, human resources is the engine, managing the channels, tracking what works, and training the leaders. And finally, the employees. Their role is active listening and providing constructive feedback. It's a complete ecosystem. So how do those stakeholders actually put our guiding principles into practice? Well, first off, address the tough issues swiftly. Don't let them simmer. Second, optimize your messenger. Think about it. If you're announcing a massive corporate merger, that message has to come straight from a senior executive, not a line manager. Third, always praise publicly, but reprimand privately to preserve people's dignity. And finally, practice intentional honesty and build a regular cadence. You really want communication to feel like a normal, expected workflow, not some rare, intimidating event. All right, Section 3, crisis and downsizing segmentation. This is where the theory hits the real world of high-stakes crisis management. Treating your audience as one giant monolith during a major disruption is a massive operational risk. Let's say you're managing a workforce reduction. HR absolutely has to segment the organization into distinct audience layers. Audience 1, your displaced employees. Audience 2 comprises the HR and managers who are actually delivering those difficult notices. Audience 3 is your retained staff, the ones suddenly facing expanded workloads. Audience 4 is the staff completely unaffected by the restructuring, and Audience 5 is the department leaders trying to navigate the whole shebang. You literally have to tailor the style and volume of your messaging to the unique reality of each specific group. A really vital operational tactic here is meeting optimization. Look, during sensitive transitions, the rumor mill goes into overdrive. Employees need personalized answers. By keeping your meeting groups small, you make sure every single localized question gets addressed directly. That is absolutely critical for maintaining trust when things get rocky. And this all feeds into broader emergency preparedness. If you're sitting for your certification, commit this 4-step emergency plan to memory. Step 1, identify all your emergency constituents, from the internal folks to the field teams. Step 2, determine critical info needs. Isolate the absolute vital safety data. Step 3, establish redundant tech. Think SMS text groups for when the main corporate servers inevitably crash. And Step 4, conduct cross-functional focus groups to pressure test these channels way before an actual crisis hits. Next up, Section 4, cross-cultural context models. Okay, before we even talk about culture, let's quickly map out the major perceptual barriers that just distort corporate messaging. Because misunderstandings happen when the encoded words of the sender just do not match the decoded meaning of the receiver. First, selective listening. That's when employees literally block out info that clashes with their deeply held beliefs. Value judgments happen when a message gets judged before the speaker even finishes. Then there's source credibility, where the speaker's past totally dictates how the message is received. We also have filtering, tweaking data so it sounds a bit better to the boss. And finally, frame of reference, which is interpreting messages strictly through the lens of your own past experiences. Which perfectly tees up anthropologist Edward T. Hall's context models. Guys, this is a crucial, high-stakes concept for your exams. Cultures vary drastically in how much weight they put on explicit words. Low-context cultures, think Germany or North America, they prioritize direct, written specifics and binding contracts. Everything is spelled out. High-context cultures, on the other hand, like Japan or Brazil, rely heavily on unspoken nuances, body language, and context. In these cultures, personal relationships are the absolute bedrock of business, so listeners have to interpret the underlying intent, not just the raw words. So your big takeaway here is a strict HR operational warning. When you are in cross-cultural settings, avoid idioms, colloquialisms, and buzzwords completely. They just do not translate well. You have to be hyper-mindful of diverse naming conventions and truly respect differing cultural interpretations of things like personal space, numbers, and even the concept of time. And finally, Section 5, Channels and Fiduciary Protection. We are moving from standard info flows straight into the highest risk compliance boundaries an HR pro will ever face. But first, how does info actually move? Basically, in 5 systemic ways. Top-down brings the big directives from the execs. Bottom-up pushes things like survey data from the front lines up to decision-makers. Horizontal keeps cross-functional teams aligned. Network covers your regulated digital infrastructure, like email. And lastly, the informal flow. Yep, the classic corporate grapevine. These ad hoc networks carry organic rumors totally outside of HR's control. And let's be real, they usually travel faster than any corporate memo ever could. Now, while your employee portals can handle standard info just fine, personal consultations carry massive risk. And this brings us to fiduciary relationship liability. Pay close attention here. When dealing with retirement and pension options, HR must stick to providing basic overviews and then pass the deep education off to qualified third-party vendors. If you try to deeply educate employees on these specific options yourself, you risk taking on legally binding fiduciary liability for the entire organization. It's a line you simply cannot cross. Which leaves us with a final, slightly provocative thought to test your own operational readiness. Think about those incredibly well-meaning leaders in your company right now, giving casual advice during their one-on-ones. Are your line managers accidentally acting as fiduciaries and exposing your organization to immense hidden legal risk? It's a huge question, and one you absolutely need to answer. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.